Welcome back to the program. So first and foremost, everyone's been wondering how come I've been doing shows without production for a couple days. John's been in the hospital again. He's getting some tests done, and hopefully he'll be back next week. So at least at this point, it didn't look like it was anything serious. But I told him that I can run the show by myself. I've been doing it for years by myself. I do like the extra production, of course, but he'll be back, and we'll get back to it. But I want to talk about Matt Gaetz, okay, in particular. There's obviously this thing about some kind of scandal that's already been shot down by the Department of Justice a long time ago. There's really nothing there. It's just a way for them to try to browbeat him or try to make him seem unelectable or, unnominable or whatever you want to call it. But the reality is that he's going to serve, okay? And not just him, just like I said, Pete Hegseth will serve, Tom Homan will serve, every single person, RFK, they'll all serve, okay? Because there's only two ways that any of these nominees will not serve. Number one, if they withdraw their own nominations, which I highly doubt they will. And number two, if President Trump was to revoke a nomination and nominate somebody else. Again, likely not going to happen for anybody, and especially not Matt Gaetz. Why? Very simple. Who's been the number one defender of President Trump these past 4 years? It's been Matt Gaetz, okay? And I'm pretty sure he's not going to withdraw his own nomination because he just withdrew from his own Congress seat. So right now he's homeless, so to speak, if you know what I mean, if he was to do that. So positionless. So in this case, I just don't see that happening. Okay, that's number one. But why are we hearing all these Republicans and Democrats and CNN and MSLSD and all these people saying that he's so absolutely dangerous and he'll never ever get confirmed, and Kevin McCarthy, he won't get confirmed, and Mustache Man, whatever the idiot Bolton's name is, he's a disgrace, and all these people on CNN talking about how he's crazy and it's a joke pick. It's not real. I think even Fetterneck said something about it's trolling and it's not really going to happen. Look, folks, it is going to happen, okay? It is going to happen. He's going to serve a minimum of 210 days, 7 months. Why? Well, very simple. Because of the 1998 Federal Vacancies Act, which clearly says that a president is allowed to nominate anyone for any position in their cabinet, and they do not, let me repeat, do not have to go through a confirmation process in the U.S. Senate. Okay? That's just the way it is. So I'm telling you, don't listen to these idiots. Don't listen to these reports. Don't listen to these morons that say that he's never going to be confirmed. It doesn't matter. He's gonna serve. And if he serves for 210 days, 7 months, and he serves from basically February till August of 2025, hell, 7 months is a hell of a lot of time to drain the swamp, indict the swamp creatures, and convict these swamp creatures and deep staters, and yes, hopefully put them in jail, okay? 7 months, plenty of time. And if after that he can't get confirmed, so be it. He did his job for 7 months, and maybe they put somebody else that's just as MAGA or close to it right in his place. Okay? So I'm not worried about it. Okay? I'm not worried about any of the things that they're saying about any of these people anymore. Why? One word. Mandate. It's over. Mandate. Okay? It doesn't matter what these people say on any side, from any news organization. It doesn't matter at all. No reason to even talk about it. Because now, guess what? We are no longer mental masturbating. Now, we have what is known as what? Control and power. So when we say we're going to do something and we're going to shut down a two-tier justice system, drain the swamp, get rid of the administrative state, and do all these amazing, wonderful things, now it's not talk. I mean, it could be talk, if it's not for us to put the pressure on these people to keep their word, which, trust me, we will do. But you see, for the next 4 years, I don't have to be angry. I don't have to say certain things that are so edgy that they get me in trouble. I don't have to do any of those things. I can be the polite strategist, brain surgeon behind the scenes, deep thinker, whatever you want to call me. And my wife likes to call me the political therapist. Well, maybe that's the case too. I don't know. But regardless, now for the next 4 years, it's us, baby. It's us. We're in control. We have the mandate. And this is probably the only time, if we don't fix what we need to fix, that we will ever have this again. So it is imperative. It is vitally important that we do everything in our powers as activists in order to change the relationship permanently that we have with the federal government. That is the whole purpose of why I wrote this. Its fundamental goal is to fundamentally and permanently change the relationship we have with our government. And that means a hell of a lot smaller one. So what's happening right now in Washington and Trump's administration and transition team, I'm so just completely elated because my book is living right now. What I put in my book is happening. I am feeling so just empowered by that. And granted, I'm probably not going to get any, at least not yet, any of the credit for it. And that's okay. Because it's never been about that. It's been about what's best for the country. And if my 157-page contribution, at some point, people start looking at, reading, and basically having the ability to get in front of the right people, and some of my ideas are, created and put into legislation and law, then that would be the icing on the cake. But I wanted to kind of point that out because I think it's important for everyone to understand. Relax, slow down, take a deep breath. Every single person that has been nominated is going to serve. May not be for years and years and years, but sometimes that's not even a bad thing. What if someone's not very good and they're there for 7 months? Then Trump can say, thank you, but no thank you. He could pull them and put somebody else in. That's what a businessman does. You see, there's a different train of thought between a businessman and a politician. A politician thinks this way, one way, but a businessman thinks this way, and this way, and this way, and that way, and this way, and all around. Why? Because they're constantly changing. Different trends, different market, trends, dips, surpluses, hiring, firing, stagnation, movement, whatever, it's all there. And that's why it's so great to have these business-minded professionals at the helm here, okay? So here's why they are deathly afraid of an Attorney General, Matt Gaetz.
Told us that it's a dangerous conspiracy theory to allege that the Department of Justice is communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump. You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them and will you provide those communications?
You make a request, we'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's a conspiracy theory, that will be evident. But when you say, well, we'll take your request, and then we'll sort of work it through the DOJ's accommodation process, then you're actually advancing the very dangerous conspiracy theory that you're concerned about. Now, you were a judge, once nominated the highest court in our country. When you were a judge, I'm just curious, did you ever make political donations to partisan candidates?
No.
Hang on. It looks like there's a commercial on here. Sorry.
There are 3 elements to running a successful tax business.
on.
Things that you need to be aware.
No, and you didn't, because that would create the potential appearance of impropriety.
I didn't, because there's a federal rule
Oh.
barring federal judges from making contributions.
Right, but under that same theory of a tax on the judicial process, like, shouldn't someone be owed like a jury of their peers and a judge that's non-biased, rather than getting a judge from your political opponent's donor file?
I'm well aware that you're not asking a hypothetical. You're asking me to comment on a jury verdict in another jurisdiction which has to be respected. I won't comment on it. That case is still ongoing. The defendant
Mr.
has
Attorney General,
indicated-
I hadn't asked you about the verdict yet. We were getting there. I was talking about the judge. And so let me ask you this question about your time as a judge. Was there ever a time when you were a judge when you had a family member who was personally profiting off of the notoriety of a case that was before your court?
Look, I'm going to say again, it's very clear you're asking me to comment on a case in another jurisdiction.
No, wait, hold on, Mr. Attorney General. Did you ever have a family member profit off of the notoriety of any case that you sat over?
Say again, you're asking
Yes or no?
You're asking me to comment on a case currently.
Well, it seems you're
For
connecting the
another
dots,
court.
Mr. Attorney General. I'm just asking you as to a general principle, but you are aware that Judge Merchan's daughter was profiting off of this prosecution. You are aware that that creates the appearance of impropriety. You know the very reason there's a federal rule against judges giving donations is because it is the very attack on the judicial process that we're concerned about.
I'm sorry, I don't agree with anything you just said, but I'm not going to comment on it.
Okay, so you won't comment on it, Mr. Attorney General, but you had no problem dispatching Matthew Colangelo. Who's Matthew Colangelo?
That is false. I did not dispatch Matthew Colangelo.
Matthew
That's
Colangelo,
false.
Matthew
False.
Colangelo became the Assistant Attorney General at the very beginning of the Biden administration. Without having been Senate confirmed, goes and gets this senior role at the DOJ, and then after, I believe it's Gupta replaces Colangelo, Colangelo makes this remarkable downstream career journey from the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and then pops up in Alvin Bragg's office to go get Trump. And you're saying that's just a career choice that was made that has nothing to do with the lawfare coordinated by
I'm
the...
saying it's false. I did not dispatch Mr. Colangelo anywhere.
Well, do you know how he ended up there?
I assume he applied for a job there and got the job.
But see, you know
I
what?
can tell you I had nothing to do with it.
Well, you might not have had anything to do with it, but we've got this contemporaneous evidence in Mr. Pomerantz's book. So Pomerantz writes this book, which I'm sure you're aware of, where he says, we put together the legal eagles to get Trump. We got all these folks together and we assembled them for that purpose. And so when we on the Judiciary Committee think about attacks on the judicial process, our concern is that the facts and the law aren't being followed. A target is acquired, here, Trump, and then you assemble the legal talent from DOJ, Mr. Pomerantz, and you bring everybody in to get him. And meanwhile, the judge is making money on it. The judge is making money on it, or the judge's family's making money on it for stuff that you yourself wouldn't do. You know, no one's going to buy this. No one's going to believe it. It's going to create great disruption. And I am saddened by it because, like you, I have given my life to the law. I care deeply about the law. And I think that the lawfare we've seen against President Trump will do great damage well beyond our time in public service. I see my...
Boom. That is why they are terrified of an Attorney General Matt Gaetz. He's young. He's smart. He's daring. He's great at attacking, and again, he understands the game that they have played, and in a position as the Department of Justice, where it could actually be called the Department of Justice again, instead of the Department of Injustice, like I've been calling it for 4 years, we're going to have accountability, and they know that. So all these people, and I'll add one more thing onto that, Merrick Garland never actually had the ability, or the law ability, I should say, the legal ability to appoint Jack Smith. He was not confirmed through a Senate confirmation. None of that happened. So they just made it up to get President Trump. So that's prosecutorial misconduct. That's, dissolution of rights, deprivation of rights is what I meant to say, under the color of law. I mean, it's a bunch of different things. And so, again, These people are either going to need to immediately leave the country and go to a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States of America, or they're going to have to lawyer up and save their documents, because these people are going to be held accountable one way or another. And so I just wanted to kind of point that out. That's why they want Matt Gaetz not to be the Attorney General. But like I said, thankfully, the 1998 Federal Vacancy Act allows him to be so, at least for 210 days. Now, let's move on to RFK Jr. Wow. Look, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do something I don't normally do, which is make mistakes. And more importantly, admit it when I do. I was under the impression that NIAID, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, was over the National Institute of Health. That is actually true. But what I didn't realize is that the Health and Human Services Secretary is over all of them. I thought, and was incorrect in my thinking, that NIAID was over HHS and NIH. I was wrong. It's actually HHS over all of them, okay? And so when I was saying that we should allow Fauci to run NIAID, that's what my thought was. But in reality, him as Health and Human Services Secretary, way better. It's the highest position you can possibly be in the U.S. government when it comes to health policy. It's the number one position. So underneath that are 16 umbrellas. I'm not going to go through every umbrella, but it is some of these, okay? The Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Why is this important? Well, this is emergency preparedness. This is viruses, virus control, perhaps, acts of God and things like that, earthquake, whatever it may be. And so that's important because he's now going to be over that, which means that he's going to put the right people in there. One suggestion that I would have for the CDC would be maybe Dr. Andrew Wakefield. He was one of the doctors that was absolutely just destroyed. His whole career was destroyed after being, anti-vaccines and actually proving that the vaccines were bad. They banned him from everything. They threw him out. He was in the movie Vaxxed many years ago. So that would be sweet revenge for someone like that to take over CDC. The Center for Medical Services, Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, is also underneath Health and Human Services. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. This is where he's going to be very, very influential. We're talking about banning forever chemicals, getting rid of PFAS, things like that, plastics out of certain things, and including our food supply, fluoride he's mentioned, just toxins, dyes, certain poisonous oils like the cottonseed oils and soybean oils. Like, these are really bad oils that are really bad for your body and can cause cancer over a long period of time. And then, of course, they're also going to be free, fresh water, fresh, good water supply and things like that, getting rid of bioengineered food. In a lot of ways, we're gonna become the United Kingdom in our food supply, because the food supply in Europe and other countries around the world is actually very good. They don't use the preservatives. Many of the toxins that we have in our food are already banned in Europe and things like that. So he's actually going to take us to Europe, so to speak, and our food supply and things like that are going to be much better. I mean, you're going to hear things on the news where it's going to say that, HHS has just banned, XYZ chemical or XYZ, preservative, or no longer allowed to use this type of dye in our food or what. That's what we're going to start getting with RFK Jr. This is a man who's been waiting his entire life. His lifelong dream has been to solve America's chronic health problems. And now he's in charge of being able to do it. It's wonderful. It's also over the NIH. Again, funding of research. You're not going to have gain of function, dangerous research anymore. You're not going to be doing anything with the Wuhan lab, in China and elsewhere. So he'll also hopefully be able to shut down a lot of the bioweapons labs that are around the world, especially in Ukraine and other places. So that's also awesome as well. The Office of Civil Rights is also underneath HHS. This is another great thing. No more lockdowns, okay? No more forced mandates and, things like that. And this also, I guess, would also come into rules and laws pertaining to HIPAA, right? The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is health privacy. So that's all underneath the Office of Civil Rights. The Office of Global Affairs, that's another one. That's going to be who's going to be representing the WHO, whether or not we're still going to be in the WHO, whether or not we're going to be funding the WHO. Remember, President Trump in his first term took us out of what I call the Wuhan Health Organization, but the World Health Organization. Office of Inspector General, that's another position that he can put in somebody that would be, a loyalist. And it's also the Surgeon General. He's also over the Surgeon General, the Office of Public Health, and here's another one, the National Science Foundation. If you guys read the book, you'll notice chapter 5, Houston, we have a spending problem. Part of what I talk about in chapter 5 is what? I talk about all the crazy spending from shrimp on treadmills to I don't even know, what was it? Rattlesnakes and squirrels fighting each other and just all kinds of crazy things that they've spent millions and millions of dollars on. Bridges to nowhere, tunnels underneath, for turtle crossings, teapot museums. I mean, you name it, it's all in the book. He's going to be over that as well. And one of the organizations, if you remember in the book, that I quote a lot was according to what? The National Science Foundation, right? I say, according to the National Science Foundation, they granted $3.5 million to study the mating habits of, cackling hyenas or, whatever it might be, right? And so that National Science Foundation has zero to do with science. Nothing. It is nothing more than an extra government slush fund. So I'm pretty confident that one's going to be zapped as well. And who knows, maybe Elon and Vivek will get to that one even before RFK Jr. does. So that's another good thing. And then this was just breaking as well. And I'll get to that in just a second. But here's the thing. Let's pray for RFK Jr., okay? Because he's going to need a lot more security than he already has. He is literally taking on Big Pharma and gonna destroy them. He's taking on big food, big agriculture, big sugar, whatever it is that you want to call it. He's taking on some pretty big and dangerous people. You're talking about basically trying to dismantle a $1.7 trillion industry. So let's all pray for RFK Jr. and his safety. Now, here's to the breaking information. So you're going to probably hear this tomorrow sometimes. I don't think it's been announced just yet, but I've heard from my sources that Doug Burgam is going to be named the Secretary of the Interior tomorrow. So if you're watching this tomorrow, then today, whatever. And this is wonderful, okay? It's wonderful, and there are some dangerous caveats for it, and I'll get to that here in just a second, but Doug Burgam has been a pretty decent North Dakota governor, and he's got a history in energy. He's got a history in oil and things like that, and he's been doing that type of stuff for many, many years. He's got a lot of experience in it. But the best part is let's think about this. What does the Secretary of the Interior actually cover? What are their main goals? Well, of course, management of public lands. That's one of their big things. So what does that tell you right away? Anybody want to guess? What was that? That's correct. $800 for you. That's right. The Keystone Pipeline is coming roaring back. Why? Well, because now the Secretary of the Interior is going to be in charge of management of public lands. So that's coming back. Here's another thing that's going to come back and be wide opened again. ANWR, the Alaskan National Wildlife Refuge, which, of course, the left and Biden's regime immediately did executive orders to shut down oil exploration in Alaska. Guess what? Now, with the Interior Secretary being a conservative, guess what? That's going to be opened up as well. Remember what President Trump said? You want to get rid of inflation and high prices? Energy prices must come down. Well, guess what? We open up Anwar. We do Keystone. And we do other drilling, right? And coal and other things like that. Boom, there it is. Energy prices drop. Everything else drops as well. Okay? So, also, energy and mineral resources. Oil, gas, coal, renewables. Okay? Also in charge of all of our national park services, water resources and conservation, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, and yes, even the Bureau of Land Management. So there's not going to be any more of those Southern Oregon issues with, it's been so many years, but the Mohair Wildlife Refuge standoff, you remember that, right? With, I can't remember his name, I am so sorry, the gentleman that was shot and killed by the FBI in Southern Oregon. I'm sure it'll come to me in a bit, but that standoff, or the Bunkerville standoff, with the BLM in outside of Las Vegas, in Nevada, that, with the Bundys and everything. So now we're going to have friendly people in the Bureau of Land Management. And by the way, the Bureau of Land Management, most of it has been moved outside of Washington. They did that a while back. And the best part is how are you going to get all this approved? Lee Zeldin's your Environmental Protection Agency director. Guess what? He's going to rubber stamp all of the permits to get all of this started and to get it all done. So really, really good news on the horizon. And one more thing, and this one is kind of important, okay? There's a couple things here. But this one in particular. Have you noticed the one department that you haven't heard anything about as far as looking for a department head or secretary of or anything like that? How come we haven't heard anything about the Department of Education? Well, I can tell you this. Ronald Reagan, when he was running for president, said and promised that he would abolish the Department of Education. It never happened. George H. Walker Bush also campaigned on abolishing the Department of Education. And yes, even President Trump, in his first run, also campaigned on abolishing the Department of Education. Now, President Trump is known for keeping his promises. He's already kept so many promises already just by his cabinet choices. He is putting loyalists, people that he trusts, in these positions. It's wonderful. But yet, he's not naming a Department of Education secretary or head or whatever they're known as. Could it be that he's actually going to keep that promise and abolish it? Time will tell. Those are my thoughts for this evening. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.